Time is our most limited resource. Every second it is ticking away, second by second, hour by hour, year by year. It just gets faster and faster and faster. And in these precious seconds, there is only so much that we can ever do. And there's only so much that our mind is capable of. We're told that to squeeze the most out of ourselves, we need to train our mind. To know more and do more, we need to train our mind more. The longer our mind can survive the pain of difficult, hard things, the longer it can be working. Time management is pain management. If you want success, work harder. Your brain is like a muscle, so train it to be strong. Muscles grow under stress. The brain becomes stronger and more resilient through stress. Well, what if all of that is actually wrong? That is the subject of the podcast episode today. Welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast. I host the show and I am called Sam Harris, which, just to go on a short tangent, is causing me a few issues lately due to being confused with the other podcaster, Sam Harris, who also happens to be into meditating a lot and psychology. For the 99.99% of you who aren't called Sam Harris, you may be surprised to learn how many Sam Harrises there actually are. I am actually in a Facebook group of people just called Sam Harris after one of us had got Facebook hacked and their friends made a group just of Sam Harrises and added every single one that they could find on Facebook. So yeah, I guess someone with my name was going to come out with a podcast at some point, and it was me. So there you go. And another fun fact is that my real name is Samuel Webster Harris, and I was actually supposed to be called Sebastian, but my dad is also dyslexic like me, and he panicked at the registry office because he couldn't spell Sebastian, and so he called me Sam. Life does work in mysterious ways. Anyway, I'm going to have a bit of a rebrand to make life easier for people, to call myself Sam Webster, as Webster is my middle name and it's kind of a bit more unique and I like it. I was also considering calling myself sexier Sam Harris, or Sam Never Late Harris, which is more just ironic around the fact that I'm usually late, but I'm British, so irony made sense. Let's move on to the subject of getting the best use of our brains. Alan Watts stated that this is the secret of life, to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now, and instead of calling it work, realize it is play. Alan Watts certainly knew a thing or two, and it doesn't sound like he would subscribe excruciating mental torture to help maximize your life. And in case you forgot, we're looking at the other side of the advice to treat your brain like a muscle. Firstly, I'll just mention that I do have a degree in biological sciences, which also included neuroscience, like the other Sam Harris. Lol. More importantly, this qualifies me to tell you that your brain is not a muscle, just in case someone actually thought that. But more specifically, where is this advice unhelpful, and what should we think instead to get the most out of our brains? Is there a right workout plan that works out right? There is. It's good to learn things in the correct stages, so we'll start with some evidence that my initial claim is possible. If you know anything about memory, you'll have heard that there are ways that you can radically improve your memory. It doesn't involve just bashing words and numbers repeatedly into your mind in the hope that they will stick. You can create entire memory palaces by creating imaginary locations and absurd stories about different things in them. And by doing this, you can remember the number of pi to thousands of decimal places, or a shuffled pack of cards in 30 seconds. So straight away, we have an example that's an obvious flag that using a brute force approach to simply train harder doesn't produce special results in our brains. Instead, with creativity and interest, you can achieve an unparalleled increase in the powers of your mind and its abilities on a completely different level to before. And now we will get a bit meta by moving on to the use of analogies as an example, because I love a good analogy, something that we understand well, and drawing parallels to help our mind comprehend a new thing really easily. It's a shortcut for putting information into your brain, but you can't shortcut new abilities into your muscles. They are either working or relaxed. So again, the mind is like a muscle analogy doesn't hold up. In fact, you might know someone who completely turned their life around after a big insight. Maybe they had a spiritual retreat or a near-death experience. This led to a crushing realization. They kicked their bad habit, started taking ownership of their life. They might have stopped being lazy and launched a business and crushed it. And there was no warm-up, no training, yet it's possible for your mind to jump into doing a really hard thing from previously doing nothing at all. There's no equivalent to this in fitness. No one who was unfit and overweight just turned around and the next day could run an ultramarathon at a record-breaking pace or could set some crazy weightlifting record. Like, the physics of what our mind and body can do are radically different. So I think that is enough evidence that what you can achieve with your mind and muscles should be considered on very different levels and over very different time spans. And this is why every time I hear someone wisely saying that your brain is like a muscle, it rubs me slightly the wrong way. I also just love looking at the opposite of common advice. But training, growing, and resting a brain should be considered very differently if we want the best results. Something that I did as a bit of a thought exercise preparing this episode was just listing all the ways that brains and muscles are different. It helped me get my head around what I wanted to say and uncovered the advantages of things that we can use. And I think it just also helps set the groundwork of what we'll move on to next with how to make the most of our brain. Even if some of these things sound a bit obvious, I just thought I should say them anyway. Number 1. Your brain is the most complex creation in the universe. It's genuinely baffled scientists since they first studied it, and they're still mostly unsure on what's going on inside or how to recreate it. Your muscles, however, are relatively generic and the output is pretty simple. Number 2, your brain doesn't stop. It just does different things. Constantly, always. If you're asleep, it's still processing and storing memories and creating dreams and funky stuff. If you're walking and not thinking about much, well, you're bloody walking, which is ridiculously difficult, and it took you years to learn how to walk before you were able to automate it and not think about it actively. A lot of your brain is still doing stuff, and whilst you are walking, you might even be working out what to eat for lunch or listening to a podcast at the same time. Your brain doesn't stop. Your muscles, however, by default, are resting, kind of turned off. They need instructions from the brain to make it contract and turn on. Number 3, your brain is contained inside bone to protect it and hold it. Your muscles, however, sit outside of the bones mostly, and they pull on them to move the bones around. Number 4, your entire body is actually pretty much a vessel for your brain. It provides all the nutrients for the brain to do the thing, and the brain directs the body to do stuff to keep the whole body alive, which includes the brain. Your body, however, is moved by the muscles, which is the way for the brain to put into action the thoughts and ideas it has to help keep itself alive. Number 5, your brain needs brain food, fats, oils, nutrients, and if you don't know much about brain nutrition, the company Heights does a great supplement. They're not sponsoring this show, but if you want, I would go for that. Otherwise, you can look up your own research. And then on the opposite of brain food, your muscles need muscle food, mainly protein. So make sure you have some of it in your diet. You don't need to go crazy. Number 6, brain tissue is not replaceable, or you might even say non-fungible if you're a cool kid like not me. So you can't replace a damaged part of your brain. You can't regrow new parts of brain, but your brain can retrain with the parts that it does have to learn different things with a cool thing called neuroplasticity. Muscles, however, muscle tissue is replaceable and regrowable. The only thing that it doesn't do is change its function. It basically only contracts and relaxes, and that's about it. Number 7. Your brain forms new connections and learns through experiences. If it experiences the same things, it doesn't learn very much and doesn't make new memories. If it experiences something different, important, or new, or understandable, it can learn a lot. Your muscles, however, grow new cells purely in response to exercise and being under stress. The more stress, the better, until you break them. This is where things get very interesting, because stress on the brain inspires it to take action, and it can be very productive. And similarly, an overstressed brain can actually break down in its terms of abilities. So too much stress can cause things like panic attacks or losing your short-term memory, and even developing long-term things like PTSD. But stress teaches your brain things to avoid and what not to do. Being under stress creates an inbuilt function to avoid doing the stressful thing, whereas stress on the muscle teaches it to be better at doing the stressful thing. So, drawing all of these things together, I don't feel that stress is the optimal way to go. For me, I think this leads to one big take-home, is that you exercise your muscles, but you entertain your brain. Because your brain never switches off. It leans into what it wants to do. Stress is only for teaching it what it doesn't want to do, and makes it active whilst avoiding what it doesn't want to do. And if we rely on stress as the main motivator for productivity, this will have a negative impact. Because if we treat it differently, the brain can be very productive all day long if it's enjoying itself. The muscles have a fairly linear sense of improvement due to stress, whereas the brain can learn things a lot quicker when it's enjoying itself than when it's stressed. In fact, it's averse to stress and avoids it, and it can even block things out and stop remembering things to protect itself when under stress. And you might actually be tempted to block out the next thing, which is an ad break. But stay tuned, because we'll learn how Alexander the Great became the most powerful person on the planet by having fun, and how to entertain yourself into being fit, as well as the teaching styles to adopt to achieve any goal you want after the ad break. Right, now on to everybody's favorite bit, some educational stories. As a child, I was quite good at music. I had a piano teacher who made me do classical music, and I didn't really know it or have any enjoyment for it. It was kind of stressful and repetitive, and I avoided practicing. I got bored, and I dropped piano as soon as I moved schools. A few years later, I picked up the guitar, and I had a teacher who helped me learn whatever the hell I wanted to learn. I still remember my lessons with him every week as one of my favorite times, and within the first few weeks, I was playing songs that I loved. It was just so enjoyable. Music became a way to entertain myself, and I really loved the challenge of new, hard things, so I could just sound cool playing solos, or just rocking out, or finding different ways to make sounds was interesting. And I became genuinely good at guitar. And even if I didn't have a guitar, I might even play something on a piano, just because I'd found my love of creating music. So stress here taught me something. It taught me to avoid boring teachers. But man, having fun taught me so much more about music. Enjoying myself led to creativity and tackling hard things purely for the love of it. So if you want to learn a new skill, understand the thing you're going to enjoy about it and focus on doing that part as quickly as possible. My teacher was like, what songs? Okay, these are the easiest songs I can get Sam to play within a week. And I was already doing things that made me go, but damn it, this is so cool. So if you want your brain to do more, find ways to enjoy what you're doing. Another story from my childhood is that I actually really struggled to speak for a long time, and I had quite a heavy lisp as a child. Elocution practice was kind of boring, and I was bad at it, and it just stressed me out, and I just didn't like talking in front of people at all. And I still talk too fast and struggle with things, but I have learned to have a lot more fun speaking. And one thing that I actually found to help me was listening to karaoke versions of rap songs whilst I was walking around. And I'd play a game with myself where I would just see how much of a song I could say correctly, where I pronounced the letters in the words, which is hard in a rap song, and also how much of the song could I remember. And then I just really enjoyed my walks, and I really enjoyed rapping and being silly. And that did so much more for my ability to speak than trying to find 10 minutes each day to do some drills. So again, to improve, you don't need to be stressed. You need to be creative and find the thing that will unlock enjoyment for you in the task that you are doing. So look at the end goal and try and think of what's the nicest journey that you can put yourself through to get there. Now, if you're into history or achievement or power or money, then Alexander the Great is one of the most inspiring people in history. He created what may well have been the greatest empire in history, and it wasn't because of his ability to deal with stress. It was actually because after he took over Persia, he was sat around dealing with regal stuff, which was quite boring, and for him, stressful. So he actually made up an excuse to go and invade India and get himself back on campaign where he enjoyed himself. So he wanted to do the entertaining thing for him, campaigning. So to be successful, you don't need to be stressed. You need to find what you love and what's productive, and then trying to spend your time doing that. Now, you might not be able to take over half the known world, but you could definitely become influential or live a life of enjoyment by finding where your passions match the things the world rewards. Because you're not going to be obsessed, you're not going to work harder than someone in something you don't enjoy. I've spoken a bit about the fact that I hate the whole find your calling philosophy of things and that life is just easy breezy. But I really do think that you should work out the things you are good at and that you enjoy, and be open for it to take a while, and don't settle for average, because your potential could be huge once you find the right thing. Steve Jobs dropped out of college without a business idea. He was just a bit bored, and he was more interested in exploring his interests than following the crowd. The path that you should go down might be unknown to you, and you can only connect the dots looking backwards, was something he always said. So the greatest people followed their interests. And once I realized and accepted that, I had to take a look at what I was doing and be like, shit, I've got to quit. Sam, this is what you're going to have to do. Take a chance. So yeah, obviously don't quit straight away, but think about what you're up to and if it could be more fun. And then exercise, because this is a hard one for a lot of people, I think. When I was young, I didn't like running or cycling up hills. I just tried to avoid them because it was hard and stressful. But now I appreciate the health it gives me, and I actually just enjoy physically testing myself and stretching my limits. And I really love the time to myself where my brain is free to think or learn, and I don't feel like I have to be working productively, but I get to do something that is actually a kind of work that is entertaining for me. So exercise is now entertainment for me, and so I do it every day. And if you want to exercise regularly, you don't need to be stressed. You might just need to make it more enjoyable. So start smaller, take entertainment with you, such as an iPad where you can watch things, or a podcast to listen to, or take a friend to hang out with. And if it becomes a regular thing which you enjoy, you'll keep doing it. And then you can kind of break the back of the hardness of it, so it becomes less stressful to the point where you're actually just doing it as a treat for yourself. And so we shouldn't be training our brains like a muscle. To build muscle output, you have to do hard things. But to build personal output, you must make the hard things enjoyable. If you try to do hard things using the hard way, you fail and resort to just entertaining yourself the easy way, and you'll procrastinate, or you'll go onto social media or watch Netflix, and you're not going to be getting anywhere in terms of achievement. If you find the entertaining way to do a hard thing, you can achieve almost anything. So remember that your brain doesn't turn off, and as they say, offense is the greatest defense. So you need to learn to entertain yourself productively, or you will be entertained. And I think that's where my obsession with the concept of play to learn came in, because I don't know if you heard last year in blockchain, there was this whole play to earn where people could earn money playing games, which was just stupid because no one was creating anything of value. But when you're playing to learn, you are creating value for yourself. And I think it should be the future. For example, when I was doing a coding course, I actually built a version of Space Invaders where I learned people's names from other boot camps so that I didn't forget people's names. And you can be your own teacher. You can gamify things for yourself because as we know, teachers that make you work out your brain by just repeating things to become stronger, they're kind of crap, they're kind of boring, and you don't really like them. Whereas teachers that entertain you with exciting stories, captivating challenges, or giving you rewarding, fun things to do, that's where you learn, through your interests. Those teachers are awesome. And once you become an adult, you are your own teacher. You are in control of your own education. You get to choose what sort of teacher you want to be to yourself. So, learn to entertain yourself. And finally, a nice quote from Jason Mraz. I've come to the conclusion that people who wear headphones whilst they walk are much happier, more confident, and more beautiful individuals than someone making the solitary drudge to work without acknowledging their own interests and power. You don't necessarily have to wear headphones all the time, but you should acknowledge your own interests and power. That is where your strength lies. I hope that this helped motivate you, and please do share it with someone who says that you should train your brain like a muscle. And if you could give me a good rating, that would mean the world. And until next time, stay happy. If you want to enjoy your life, it does start with enjoying today. So do something nice.